What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Georgia Show. I'm Jake Rose, Rusty Mansell. Glad to be back, Rusty, and we're here with you here on a Sunday night. We got a lot to talk about. Georgia's second scrimmage, fifth and final week of spring. Georgia gets an offensive line pledge. Dogs miss out on a quarterback. We're going to cover all of it, and we're not going to sit there and dwell on any of it, really. We're just going to make sure we hit all the high spots here, Rusty. But what's going on with you, man?
Yeah, what's going on with you, man? Week at Disney and few days down there, you were in like that was you went straight into the teeth of it. Spring break, baby.
Not for the faint of heart, dude. Listen, I'll take all the walking. I'll honestly take a hit to the pocketbook.
You took a hit in the pocketbook.
Yeah, I mean, there ain't no choice. But
yeah,
that 45 minutes each way to go 10 miles is for the birds, brother.
Test your manhood,
birds. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm glad I was there with other people. We were driving different vehicles at times because it was kind of like, hey, you get on the phone. You're like, hey, you get over into this real quick. If you can get over, just let me over in front of you.
Oh my
that
goodness.
kind of thing. That's how bad it was. So that was rough, but man, we had a great time. It's a lot of fun. And kids had a good time. That's all that matters. So
that's right.
That's all that matters. But plenty went on while I was gone. That's for sure. We'll hit on the most recent, Rusty. Georgia's second scrimmage. We got a full report over it on it at DawgsHQ. But what of all the little news and notes and nuggets that come out of it, what stood out to you?
I think the defense kind of bowed their necks. To use an old term, you know, we talk to people. We hear things. I think it's pretty common right now, and it's kind of be expected. I don't want to get crazy, but the offense is very, experienced. You got Carson Beck back. Got a lot of guys back. The offensive line is very experienced. The defense has got some key guys out, and quite frankly, the offense has been getting into their so far this spring and the moments that matter. But from everything we heard yesterday, I know they put out some clips. Georgia football put out some clips today, a couple of touchdowns throws, but I think the defense got after them yesterday, and I think the text to me was Glenn Schumann probably slept well for last night for the first time in a while, so I know he was probably excited. That defensive staff gives you a little juice, and you're at that time, Jake, of the spring practice. You're at that time, like you said, you're in the fifth. It's the fifth week. Is what it is. It's the fifth week of going into the fifth week. You kind of get in your rhythm. You got some young guys. You don't have Malachi Starks. You don't have Smile London. Ty Ingram Dawkins. You got all these kind of key guys that are out right now. So these young guys are getting in some reps, starting to get a little more experience and kind of play, kind of playing a little more free and not thinking so much, which is kind of the ideal of spring.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out, I was actually talking to a high school coach about this yesterday. A good friend of mine called me up and was kind of giving me the business about going to Disney and all that stuff. He had seen a few pictures on Facebook. We were talking, and he was like, "How them dogs look?" And he's not even a Georgia fan. He's not really a fan of anybody anymore. Just kind of met so many coaches doing this over the years. And I said, well, it sounds like the offense is kind of getting better than the defense, and it's kind of got folks up in arms. He goes, they bring Carson Beck back, right? I said, yeah. He said, and they can keep him upright, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, that's just going to happen. They're going to do that to just about everybody, not just themselves. And putting it that simple like that kind of put that in perspective. Rusty, the one that got me, and I'm going to go straight off the video, right? You see Arian Smith catch a big touchdown pass. You see Ra Thomas with a big catch. You even see Sokovie White with a great catch and Colby Young with a touchdown catch. But the one guy I thought it was just real interesting. The one guy that I think you and I both have heard consistently the most about, and that everybody's had such great things to say about him, is a guy that, hey, Georgia fans got to see him last year. They got to see him do things last year, so they're not as big and fired up about him. It's Dominic Lovett. And
it's go time.
I'll tell you, man, every time I talk to somebody, his name gets brought up every single time. And listen, I know he didn't fly over from Missouri last year and have 1,000-yard season like a lot of folks predicted, but he was still the team's second leading receiver. And let me tell you something, when Brock Bowers was either out or missed most of a game, it's a guy that averaged 60, 65 yards a game for Georgia. I mean, he was a big factor when Brock – I honestly think that with that dynamic changing with the tight end and there being kind of a little bit more of a void there to fill as far as catching passes, I got kind of high hopes for the kid.
Yeah, how do I say this? You were in the huddle with maybe the greatest Georgia offensive player since AJ Green, Brock Bowers, and the offense was built around him, and it should have been. And so it's a passing game now, but I think not to get too deep into that subject. Dominic Lovett is going to be one of those guys that's going to get more targets because Brock Bowers is not here. And like I said, I think I mentioned on here that I talked to a high school coach that took his prospect down a couple of weeks ago, and they set in some meetings. And the two people that he set in two different meetings. He said in the quarterback room, then he sat in the wide receiver room, and he said the two people that don't get any questions are Carson Beck and Dominic Lovett. And the reason why you don't ask them questions because they know it. And if you're a position coach, you want one of those young kids. You want to see them answer that questions and how they react. But when you don't ask Carson Beck questions in the quarterback room because he knows it, and then you don't ask Dominic Lovett questions in that wide receiver room because he knows it, that's a real good thing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Going into this fifth and final week of spring, Rusty, I think both of us would agree that there's one major key, and that is to stay healthy. All right,
yep,
you get 3
don't jinx
practices.
it.
You got 3 practices left. That's the number one thing you want is to stay healthy. That's I ain't jinxing it. I ain't saying anything. I ain't saying anything about anything. Just same thing.
Right.
You say your prayers at night. Pray for health.
All right. Hey.
Yeah, that's why we're. That's
all
right. But
I'm so superstitious, dude. I can't do it.
Stretching towards G Day. What are you like early on? And this may change as the week goes on, and we'll get into some of the predictions and who's your pick to click at G Day and all this stuff. We always know it's an air show, all that stuff. But what are some things that you're kind of interested in learning over this last and final week? And I'll go first. I'll take a low hanging fruit here. Really interested to see what those rosters look like, man. That is one of my, like, G Day sucks to cover. I don't like covering it at all. It's just kind of a weird event and it drags on. And, when you get everybody overreacts to it and you've seen so many of them.
I love it.
I love the Friday when we get I love seeing the rosters whenever we get a look at see who's on which roster and who's going to be paired together, even though I'm not all that fired up once they actually start playing. Once they're about a quarter in the books, I'm done with it. But I do like seeing the rosters and see how they're split up.
So vanilla. I mean, it is what it is, and it's football to me. It's in between the edges. It's in Athens. It's that kind of last look, and you'll watch to sit here and have a whole long summer before you see them come back on the field again for a game, and that'll be Clemson. But I think for me, it's Gunnar Stockton. What does he look like this week? What does he look like next weekend? Because, there's no secret, and we've said it, and we are pretty damn confident in our sources that Georgia is heavily going to be in the quarterback portal if there's a name they think that can help them. And I'm not saying to move ahead of Gunnar Stockton. We think they're going to add because Kirby Smart likes to have 4. And he wants another guy with experience. He almost took one, back in January.
Wanted one.
Wanted one. And it had him for a couple hours, and then it kind of changed. But so I think Gunnar Stockton is a big spring game for him. I think this is, be a good crowd. You get live reps. I think this is a big statement kind of for him to say, hey, don't forget about me. I can still do this. Been a while. Carson Beck was in the same boat. Just didn't know. You didn't know with him either. So I think Gunnar Stockton is a big, big weekend for him. And I think everybody's kind of excited to see the pups, Ellis Robinson, KJ Bolden, all these young guys, Joseph Ajanye, all those guys. Everybody's
talking
excited.
About one of those guys who flashed in that little video Georgia put out.
Yeah.
He had a TFL in there.
Yep.
I'll shift from the young guys to the newcomers. Obviously, I mean, if I'm looking at one guy that I really want to see in action, it's Trevor Etienne. Don't know how many reps he's going to get. I assume probably a few. But you start talking about air shows, start talking about dropping back, and you defense knows what it's going to be. and the offense is going to be throwing it around. There's some times they're going to max out some coverages and have some guys that see him dump it off and see what he can do with the ball in his hands. That's that sort of thing against some really athletic linebackers. That's another one to look at too. But yeah, you hit on a good one there, and it's something that I do keep forgetting about is that Georgia has two, what we would call in recruiting world, I guess you could classify as phenoms there in KJ Bolden and Ellis Robinson, like two of the absolute best number one players at their position in the country last year.
That's right.
In recruiting. And so, getting your first look at those guys will be very interesting. Again, bringing it up, they're going to throw the ball 60 times, so, those guys should get tested pretty good. It'll be fun to watch them.
Yeah.
Can I say something on the portal quarterback thing here? Because I did have a point on that. Assuming they portal quarterback, you think it'd be a multiple year guy. Yeah, I do think they're going to look for a multi-year guy.
Yeah. You'd be crazy to come 1 year deal.
The way you phrased it a minute ago, you said if they find one that can help them. I mean, not behind Carson, but yes. Right. Yeah, right. But not digging at you when
they're not taking a body is what I'm trying to say.
Not digging at you when I say this, but insert position. Insert position there. I mean, is Kirby going to pass on any player at any position that he feels like can really help them and they've got a shot at? Probably not. I mean, maybe cornerback, because they do have a lot of depth at cornerback, or maybe maybe inside linebacker or something like that. But for the most part, if you can help Georgia, Kirby is going to consider you. Like if he feels like you can help, you can help this team out, and that stands for quarterback. That goes for defensive line. That goes for hell. If there's a good enough offensive tackle that enters the portal, I bet they'll take a look at him too.
That would be, to me, one of the toughest things to evaluate if they get a portal quarterback. Is number one, you got to take a kid that at some point, Jake, has tape. He's playing games, and he is saying, okay, I'm coming to Georgia because I know this is Carson Beck's job, but I'm coming to Georgia to learn, to sit out a year basically, and then compete for this job next year. And it's going to take the right person. It's going to take a talented person. They're not just going to take a body there, but it's going to be interesting to see, because that is the hardest position to me, because only one person plays with majority of snaps. So I'm confident that Georgia is looking for somebody to put in that room and not just a body. And, obviously Carson Beck is firmly the guy, but, somebody with some experience to be in behind him and have to battle Gunnar Stockton every day and Ryan Puglisi down the line. And whoever else comes in that room, I think Georgia's looking for that type of guy. And they had a guy like that committed. Yeah. That had played and had a good year. And he knew he was going to sit out. And we had quotes on him saying he was comfortable with that. And then he wouldn't. So we'll see what they can do and see who gets in the portal. But we're 1 week away. We're 1 week away. Tomorrow will be 1 week away. Next Monday.
8 days away. Yeah. Hey, let me make a statement here. Let me see if you agree with it. When it comes to quarterbacks in the portal, obviously there's crossover here, but I feel like the December window is for guys that are absolutely positively 95% of the time looking for a chance where they can go get involved with a new team and play immediately. I feel like the spring window is a better opportunity for you to get a guy looking for a change of scenery, because it's so much tougher at that position just to say, hey, I'm going to go play for this team and get it figured out in 3 months.
Or they talked you into staying in December, and then you go through spring practice. You go through spring practice, and things don't go as well as you think they do.
That's for everybody, isn't it? Oh man.
And or coaching changes. I'll be interested. There's new coaches all over the country. Obviously, let's just say, for example, Alabama, because Georgia can't take a player from Alabama. But will any of those kids from Alabama after a coaching change go, you know what, I gave it a shot, this is not for me? Or that staff goes, hey, you're probably not for us. Michigan, another team, had late change. Will they lose kids? Now, if somebody goes in the portal from Michigan that's good, they can come to Georgia if they make that decision. UCLA had a coaching change late, and schools like that. So there's other examples of that, but it's one of those deals where a lot of promises, things were made and this and that, and whatever reason, kids probably flirted with the portal and didn't leave. And then they go through spring practice and say, hey, I'm out. You know what I mean? I tell you we both know the story. Barry Alexander, he almost left in January. And when he didn't go about 3 weeks into that, he was 1 foot out the door for 2 months until he wound up leaving when he could. So there's situations like that kind of around the country, different places that we'll see. But, people are going to be on us, and we don't know what to expect. You know what I mean? This is all new to us. We do know this window right here is 15 days shorter. So this thing is April 15th through April 30th, if I'm correct. So it's going to be fast, and it's going to be hectic, and there's going to be a lot of news popping around the country. You can expect next Monday night, I would imagine at midnight, around the country at different levels, it's going to start popping. I mean, these kids are going to get in because the time frame is so quick, Jake. This 2-week window, it's going to be popping.
The information changes so fast too. Like you'll be, there were times this December where you and I were talking, and it was like, hey, I think so-and-so might be going to enter the portal today. And then 2 or 3 hours later, you're hearing, I think he might be good. I think he might be good to stay. Oh, yeah. So you just don't know. You really just do not know from minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. It's is what it is, man. And
thank you for let's just say Kirby Smart, and let's say Josh Heupel. What are you going to feel on May the 1st when the window is closed until December? Like there's nothing. Now you can just coach ball. You can recruit kids and try to get guys, but the portal window, once it closes, you don't have to deal with it again until late December. And man, you know who your roster is. You know who you've got going into the summertime. And all these coaches, man, I can't even imagine what they're going to go through those 2 weeks. But man, there's going to be some strong pours, I would imagine, on May 1st when all this is over with, and they kind of know who their roster is.
That's right.
Yeah, Pete Nakos. Yeah, Pete Nakos. Yep.
Pete Nakos is a stud. He's the man. Yep. He's absolutely a machine. All right, let's get into this recruiting here. Georgia lands Mason Short, 4-star offensive lineman out of Evans High School in Evans, Georgia, over in the eastern part of the state. Rusty, I don't have a ton of experience with this guy. He's a one-time Alabama commitment. Tell us a little bit about Mason Short. I know there was a little bit of a preview that the guys did on him, but what do you know? I know you've probably been around him for a little while now.
Man, so I got a call when he was a freshman, didn't know anything about him. And I'm always looking for the big lineman for the Georgia Elite Classic. Obviously, in a freshman game, you want the biggest lineman you can find. Well, I got a call. I can't even remember who called me. I apologize if you're listening. But somebody called me, said, hey, Evans High School in Augusta has a 6'5" freshman tackle. I said, Evans High School? Man, I ain't heard. That's a baseball school for all I've heard, and get online, find out who he is, reach out to his coach, wind up getting Mason Short into the Georgia Elite Classic as a freshman. Had Mason Short playing one tackle and Nick Brooks at 6'7" from St. Francis Academy or St. Francis High School in Atlanta at that time. And Mason I've kind of followed him since then. And he's a young man that committed to Alabama. He's been a lifelong Georgia fan. His whole family were Georgia fans. Georgia kind of, took a lot of bodies there. He kept going to Alabama, and just, from talking to his family, just kind of Alabama did a good job with it. And a little bit of concern, I think, about how many people Georgia was bringing in at the time. And when that coaching change at Alabama happened, from everything I know, they were like, this is the window. Like, if I'm going to go to Georgia, this is the time to do it. Clemson got heavily involved. Clemson tried, they recruited him very hard. Kentucky was a school. Ohio State was a school. I know Ohio State recruited him hard too. Now, I talked to his head coach last week, and he said, Rusty, I'm telling you, Ohio State came after him, and he said they were all in on Mason Short and just too far from home. So, young man, it really kind of just dialed it in, closed his circle a little bit, took his visits, did his due diligence, had a little, I would say sneaky trip over, and about a week and a half ago, committed on a Thursday, and announced the next day he's going to make his decision a week later. So went over, told the Georgia staff in person, and credit to him, he wound up calling all the schools like Monday and telling them. He didn't kind of wait till the end and said, "Hey, look, this is where I'm going. I'm going to Georgia. Thank you for recruiting me." And congratulations, Mason Short, Stacy Searles. Just one of these other big humans, Jake. I mean, guy's 6'5.5", 310, 315 pounds, and he's another one of those big body 1% guys.
Tell you what, man, you can't. They don't grow on trees. They just do not. I know that's what you're saying with the 1% thing, but they just do not grow on trees. And I've learned over the years, time and time again. You can sit here and talk about how good they are, how good they're not, or what they got going on, and what you see and what you don't see. But you take them. You take the ones that are big, that they can move, and you try to coach them up, because let me tell you something, you can't teach a kid how to be that big, and you can't teach them how to move that well when they are that big. And that's just kind of the way it goes. And I like this kid a lot. It's one of those things that we, kind of watching them on film a little bit. You don't find very many guys that you don't really need to put a lot of weight on. Obviously, you got to change the body and everything, but you don't find a lot of guys that hey, I don't have to put a lot of weight on you, and I don't have to take a lot of weight off of you. And this is a guy that's going to kind of come in that kind of sweet spot, probably around, 6'5", 6'6", 310, 320. That you'll move around. He can get to 310, 320, and you don't have to waste any time kind of putting him in the cardio club or putting him on a different nutrition plan, other than to just kind of get him in shape and get him where he needs to go. Yep. The thing that folks, obviously got a little bit hit hard with last week was the fact that Georgia missed on Matt Zollers. What's next, Rusty? But we've talked about it. We've both said we don't think Georgia gets past the Zollers and Juju thing. Yep. I think at the time, I think if you would have, I'll be honest with you, at the time, I kind of expected Georgia to get Matt Zollers.
Yep.
I really did. I very much expected them, but these things do change.
Yep.
I was wrong about that. Ultimately, them last visits kind of made the thing. Missouri made a good push. Missouri's got something to sell. What do you think it goes from here for Georgia?
We still might be right. It's not like they're going to give up on Juju Lewis, and they haven't given up on Juju Lewis. I think there's communication between both of those guys that said, "Hey, we're recruiting both of you extremely hard." And interesting where they go with this. We'll kind of, because Juju Lewis is committed to Southern Cal, just got off a visit to Southern Cal and spoke openly about how good a visit it was. So we'll see what kind of pace he is on now. Obviously, he knows now, I would think, from his side, that how much more, or I don't even know if you can be much more, but he understands the scope of it. And Georgia probably had two kids at the top. Either one of those didn't get one, so he'll know that they're definitely recruiting him extremely hard continuously. So we'll see where things go with Juju, but it's not going to be anytime soon with him if he does make and I think I've heard him say a final decision. He's going to take his official visits. I said that when he came back from Georgia. I said that when he came back from Alabama, Colorado. I said, this guy's going to take his visits in June, and he is. He's going to do a due diligence there. So this might come into, July. I do know his head coach, Joey King, know him well. And I think that they're on the same page of whatever you decide, it's your decision. Let's get this thing done before the season starts. Let's have this all out of the way. So I think any kind of change, any type of movement with Juju Lewis would be then.
Yeah, and you still got those official visits coming in the summer. Ryan Montgomery. I've been open and honest. I think the kid's. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think he's a very good player. I like him a lot. Where does he factor into this, do you think?
That's going to be the decision. I know that there's some people in that corner that are very pro Georgia, and from my understanding, the communication to him was very clear that we've got some offers out there right now, trying to see how this thing plays out. I think being honest with kids helps you a lot. I think Georgia being honest with Ryan Puglisi is the only reason they kept him. They didn't fool around. They told him from the start they're going to take two quarterbacks in that class. Well, one changed his mind at the end, but even when Dylan Raiola committed, it never wavered Ryan Puglisi, because they were communicated with him from the start, and it kind of told him, hey, this other kid right here is probably leaning to us, and we're probably going to get him. So being open and honest. So with Ryan Montgomery, I think Georgia told him, "Hey, we're recruiting a couple of guys, and we're recruiting you too." But right now we're kind of waiting on some decisions, and that's okay. Doesn't mean your plan B. It just means your communication there is up and noticeable. So I think when you look at Ryan Montgomery, that Florida visit, to me, you want to see how he just got off the Florida visit. We had an update with Chad Simmons, had an update with Steve Wilfong. Kind of where is he at in about a week? What is Georgia telling him in about a week? I know there's been some communication. The communication between Georgia staff and the Montgomery family has not stopped. So he was another one they were recruiting hard. So interested to see how that plays out.
Speaking of something you just mentioned, I don't think anybody can add any of these players we're talking about and get any better than what we got this week when we got Steve Wilfong on Monday. First chance we've had.
How about that?
Known Steve for a long time. We both worked with him for a long time. Chad Simmons and Steve Wilfong on the same team is just stupid, unfair.
Cheat codes.
Just left, right, ABA, NBA Jam type stuff, man.
And thank you to everybody. If you're a new subscriber to this page and a new subscriber to DawgsHQ, Jake, I know you were out. I saw some of the numbers this week, and obviously some people followed Steve over. And thank you for for being there with us, and we enjoyed it, and glad to have you on our site.
No doubt about it. All right, folks, we will be back with you on Tuesday, but we'll also have we're going to have two shows on Tuesday. We'll be back earlier in the day on Tuesday with you because with the Georgia show, and then we're having Bark After Dark Tuesday night because we're out of pocket tomorrow night and we can't do it tomorrow night. So we'll have to do the Tuesday. We're going to do two shows, so morning and a little day-night doubleheader, Rusty.
Masters Week, what we got?
Going on Monday, going tomorrow. I'm going to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I got to walk the dog before I go. My wife's going back to work, so I got to get up and walk that dog at 4 o'clock. Wake up calls coming early. I've been drinking my apple cider vinegar all day because I'm about to throw down on some egg salad sandwiches, dude.
50 years old. What am I, 51 now? 51 now. God. I got the call.
Oh, I think you're just 50.
I'm just 50? Yeah, 50. I'm 50.
You're just 50.
I feel 61.
I feel like Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura over here.
Let me tell you something.
Tom Segura's always having to remind Bert how old he is.
Let me tell you something. I got a call of a lifetime today. I'm going to the Masters next Sunday.
We're bookending it, buddy.
Bucket list.
Yeah, I'm right tackle. You're left tackle on this one.
Ooh, man, I'm excited about it. I've been a couple times, practice rounds. I've been one real round like a Friday, but man, I get to go Sunday at the Masters. God, that's going to be.
That's great, man. That's great.
Will you save me some egg salad?
I can't make no promises. How many
of those homemade peach ice cream sandwiches you gonna eat?
Not too many of them. Not too one or two though, for sure. I tell you what's underrated, what's become underrated that nobody talks about now, because I think it's fairly new. I think it's like last few years. They do the breakfast sandwich. It's like it's like a bacon sausage. May even have a little ham on it. It's like a egg and cheese. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lightness to it, but I'm telling you, it's good, man. It is good. It is really good. So, with them white chocolate pecan cookies, get a little wild on them too. $5 beer. It's a bad day to be a beer. That's all I know. It's a bad day to be a beer.
Last thing I'll say, I got a chance to do the Rome Emperors last night, which is now used to be the Rome Braves, the Braves single A team up in Rome, and got a chance to spend a few minutes with Ladd McConkey last night, and man, he looks good. He's excited. We talked about Kirby on the microphone and some of those things and how crazy it is. He is very excited. He had some meetings with the Colts and Bengals Friday. Just Zooms. He has Zooms with a lot of teams, but those are two teams he's already talked to this week. So I asked him, I said, dude, where you want to go? And he said, anywhere. I'm just excited to go. Well, my 9-year-old standing in front of him, my 9-year-old daughter looks at him and says, I want you to play for the Chiefs. And I want you to then meet Travis Kelce. And then I want you to get Travis Kelce, introduce you to Taylor Swift. And then I want you to call my dad so I can come to a game. And I thought Ladd McConkey was going to fall out, dude. He was like, well, you could at least start and just said, I want to meet Taylor Swift. So She is pumped. She's like, if this man, I want to break it to her, but she thinks if this man goes to the Chiefs, we're about to meet Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a rough off season for her.
I still hadn't told my daughter that that I've known Miko Hardman for a long time. You know what I mean? There's just there's this.
You got a lot better chance of meeting Miko with her than any of us do meeting Taylor Swift. I can promise you that.
That's exactly right.
Miko,
heck, I think Miko probably has to position himself to meet Taylor Swift, and that's a difficult one right there. But hey, them kids, man, they got their angles, especially them little girls.
No doubt.
They know how to make it happen. All right, we'll be back with y'all later this week. We love you. We appreciate you, and y'all take care.
Big week.